Purdue fans. This is Johnny DeCamp bringing you play-by-play the rousing...
Hi, everybody, along with Ron Kramer, this is Pete Van Weeren welcoming you to Ross-Ade Stadium.
Live from Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette, Indiana.
It's a football Saturday in West Lafayette, Indiana, and one of the biggest home games in decades.
Boilermakers rush the field. What a night in West Lafayette.
Your Central Indiana Ford dealers are a proud sponsor of Purdue Football and the Ross-Ade's Greatest Games podcast. Visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today. Welcome to the Ross-Ade's Greatest Games podcast. I'm Corey Palm. He's Tim Newton, the voice of Purdue Football, and we are running down several of the greatest games in the history of the stadium as it celebrates its 100th season this year. A couple things before we get started. As always, we've only got a few weeks left. We cannot possibly cover all the games that we want to on this list, which is unfortunate, Tim, but we're doing our best. So this list not comprehensive. And one note about today, we've been trying to roll these out chronologically, but we had a chance to talk about the Holy Toledo game with Seth Morales, so we took it. We're deviating a little bit from a chronological...
Think of it as a flashback.
A flashback from our flashbacks. Today we're going back to October 28th, 2000. Ohio State Buckeyes come to town, and Tim, this is our second game from the 2000 season. It's actually our second game from October of that season, that month. It's hard to, even looking back, it's hard to put into words how important that month was for Purdue football.
Travis Dorsch with the field goal to beat Michigan. Then you go up and beat Wisconsin, or was
Northwestern was next.
Yep. A fairly easy win.
Northwestern shared the Big Ten title that year. They're very good.
Yes. And then the Wisconsin game where you block a field goal in overtime and win that one. And then that sets up the Ohio State game. But without those three wins, this Ohio State game that we're going to talk about doesn't have nearly as much meaning because at this point, Purdue still holds its destiny in its own hands. If it wins out, it wins the Big Ten championship. Now, it turns out didn't win out, but still got the championship. Yeah. But all those other dominoes had to fall into place to make sure that this game had a lot of meaning.
Yeah. And coming into the game, Ohio State still firmly in that discussion as well. They were 6-1. It almost set up like an elimination game. Whoever wins this game is still in the discussion. Whoever loses this game's probably out of the Big Ten title hunt. And
just to add to the fuel a little bit, one of the Ohio State linebackers, Joe Cooper, had made some statements that week about Drew Brees being soft.
Yeah.
And, of course, he makes a play later in the game that has a big effect on what we're going to talk about here with Seth Morales in the second half. But everything was set up. You got a national TV audience. You had their A crew was here, and a packed Ross-Ade Stadium looking to see if Purdue can pull off the full sweep of October.
And what they saw was a really boring first quarter. Scoreless first quarter. Steve Ennis scores early in the second quarter. And the Buckeyes tack on a field goal before the half ends. And just like everybody thought, these two high-powered offenses and great defenses, and it's a 7-3 snooze fest at halftime.
Well, you look at it, too, as a frustrating day because Purdue was able to move the football, but a lot of turnovers.
Yeah.
Drew was uncharacteristically off target for part of that game, although, again, he hit the big pass when he needed. But a lot of turnovers, and it was a back-and-forth game. And, it was a pitcher's duel really going into the locker room.
The Boilermakers got the ball to start the second half, go on a long drive, but have to settle for three. Dorsch comes out, kicks a field goal to make it 10-3. Then Ohio State got their offense going.
Yeah.
Got everything going, actually. The Buckeyes kick a field goal, force a punt, go on a long drive, 8 plays, 62 yards for a touchdown, and they take the lead.
And then they add to it with a special teams touchdown. Nate Clemens, who was an outstanding NFL player, returns a punt for a touchdown, and you're thinking all of a sudden maybe this is not going to be Purdue's year because you're down 10 to Ohio State. And at that point, their defense had started to play a little bit better in the second half.
Yep.
And now the question is, can the Boilermakers score not just once, but at least twice, and then hold Ohio State down?
Yeah, 20-10 after 3. And Brees and the Boilermakers open the fourth quarter with an 11-play, 70-yard drive. He finds Standiford for a 5-yard touchdown, and now it's 20-17. You're chipping away, getting back in the game.
We're going to talk a lot about the play at the end of the game, but the play where he threw the touchdown pass to John Standiford was vintage Drew Brees because it was a play where he gets in the pocket, can't find anybody open, does his quarterback drill where he backpedals, but his eyes are constantly down the field, and he finds Standiford. And again, we were looking at it from the top of the Ross-Ade press box. It looked to us like the ball was going way out of bounds. And somehow John was able to come down with the football, keep his foot in bounds, and all of a sudden you're within a field goal, and now Ross-Ade Stadium comes back to life.
Exactly. 68,000 people in attendance that game. And the first half snooze fest, 17 straight Ohio State points, pretty out of it until that drive. Defense comes out, feeding off that energy, forces a 3-and-out. B.J. Sander, who went on to be a Ray Guy Award winner as the punter for Ohio State, a third-round draft pick by my Green Bay Packers, plays up there for a few years. He drops a 50-yard punt inside the 10.
Yep.
And you're thinking, okay, it's fourth quarter, we're down 3, got to get some points here. The Boilermakers.
They did.
Yeah. 90-yard drive. They go 11 plays, and Drew finds Vinny, as he loved to do, for a 19-yard score.
One thing we knew about Vinny Sutherland, he could run, and he was able to outrun the Ohio State defenders to the right pylon to score. And I remember him kind of flapping his hands in the air as he got into the end zone. But again, now the Boilermakers take the lead. And they're able to hold the lead because the defense comes up with another stop. So now all you got to do is run that dreaded 4-minute offense.
That's it.
And you've got your win over the Buckeyes.
4.5 minutes to go. You got the ball, and so 4-minute offense, run the ball. You know, you've got a pretty decent run game here. They're putting together a nice year. They pick up 4 yards on the first 2 plays, and on third down, 3rd and 6, Drew drops back to pass. I'll let you walk us through that play.
Well, it was a play where, ironically enough, Joe Cooper, the guy who had kind of mouthed off that week about how soft Purdue and how soft Drew Brees was, he comes through clear on a blitz.
Yeah.
Doesn't get picked up, doesn't get blocked. Drew sees him and tries to throw the ball out of bounds, and he slips as he goes to throw it and just throws a wounded duck to the sideline. And Mr. Doss, Mike Doss, picks it off on the sideline, and Drew said later he was so mad that he threw the interception. He made the tackle and he said, I tried to knock myself out. And he just about did because they banged heads inside the 5-yard line. So at that point, it's still, Purdue has a 4-point lead at that point. So if they can hold Ohio State out of the end zone, they can still come out with the win. But unfortunately, the Buckeyes then, I think, scored on their 3rd down play.
They did. They took, and in taking 3 plays to get in the end zone from a couple years out, it took time off the clock.
Yeah.
So it was one of those situations where you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Maybe the best thing analytically is to just let Mike Doss score and save yourself some time. But there's no competitor in the history of college football who's going to choose to do that.
No, I'm trying to think of how you would talk Brock Spack into letting his defense let a team score a touchdown to take the lead with 2 minutes left. I think you'd take an army of people to do that.
Yeah.
And they did stop him on the first 2 plays. And it looked like on the 3rd down play they were going to stop him too, but the ball carrier just bounced his way to the outside, and now all of a sudden you're down by 3.
Down by 3, just under 2 minutes to go. It's funny. We've told you this entire story, and here's where it gets good.
Yeah.
Because
the best part's coming.
The best part's coming. There's the legendary story of Drew going to the sideline and very upset with himself, like you said, and Ike Moore comes over and has that conversation with Drew, and I've heard both of them tell this story, and I mean, it happened. He walks up to Drew and says,
what did your mom always tell you at home? If you break it, fix it.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Drew did after throwing the interception. Chris Clopton comes up, good kickoff return, so they get the ball around the 35-yard line. And after an incomplete pass, it brings up the play that probably is the most famous play in Purdue football history.
I think the deep offense has the advantage because of the pressure, but after you've thrown 4 interceptions like this, I've got to believe Drew Brees is feeling it right now.
2nd down and 10. Offensive line continues to do a great job. Wide open. Got him. Touchdown Purdue. Seth Morales. Holy Toledo.
drops back, he goes through his progressions, sees the safety bite on a cross from A.T. Simpson, who coming across the middle. Doss cheats in a little bit, anticipating that's where the ball's going, and Drew sees late, he sees his fourth progression. Seth Morales, who comes open, he had his man beat, and 64 yards later, he is standing in the end zone. The Boilermakers back on top.
Seth Morales, and we'll hear his view of that play, but I can tell you that it's a play that no matter where you are, no matter how long you've been a Boilermaker fan, you'll know exactly what you were doing at that moment, what the elation was. But having said that, there was still time left. And Ohio State, if they score a touchdown and go down the field, they're going to ruin our Hollywood story. Kind of an anticlimactic ending.
Yeah.
The game ended basically. Ohio State was running a play with a player coming in motion. The center snaps the ball early. It hits the player who's in motion. Purdue falls on the fumble. Ball game over.
I've watched that play over and over again. Just we have access to the archival footage and going back doing research for various things. That's such a bizarre play. You're right. It's so strange. And Steve Belisari, the Ohio State quarterback, was almost just like he froze.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to do. He was probably the only Buckeye who had a chance to cover that ball, and he's just like, what just happened? And then it was too late.
Safe to say a little bit different execution in the team's 2-minute offense.
Yeah.
It goes down in 2 plays and takes the lead, and Ohio State can't snap the ball to their quarterback. And then it was another of the field rushes that season in 2000. I think we had 3 that year, Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana. So the fans rushed the field. Boilermakers win the game. Now they lost after that at Michigan State and needed some help to be able to get the destiny back in their own hands, which they got. Mm-hmm. And then Purdue beats Indiana to go to the Rose Bowl that year.
On the day, Drew, like you said, 4 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 455 yards. It was kind of a little bit of everything for the legend. And, he makes a catastrophic error and then makes up for it in the best way possible.
I think the one thing we saw about Drew Brees, not only during his Purdue career, but also his professional career, he had a short memory.
Yeah.
And he was a gunslinger. He had that kind of mentality. He wasn't afraid to try to fit the ball into some tight spots. And once in a while, you're going to throw it to the wrong color jersey when you do that. But the one thing about him, his confidence never wavered. And for him to make that play and going through to the 4th progression on a play that basically sends your team to the Rose Bowl shows how cool and calm he was under pressure.
Absolutely. You said a key word there at the end, under pressure. He had time to get through his 4th progression.
Yes.
He had time and enough confidence still in the protection that he didn't have to tuck it or throw it away. That offensive line was unbelievable.
I've been here, this is my 45th or so year at Purdue. I've never seen an offensive line that had that much talent. And there were games, not only did Drew not get sacked, he didn't get touched and didn't get pressured an entire game. And so they took a lot of pride in that. And Drew Brees is a phenomenal player, but one of the reasons he was a phenomenal player here is he had phenomenal blockers in front of him.
Purdue shared the Big Ten title with Northwestern and Michigan, as it turned out. The Boilermakers had head-to-head wins against both of them. So Rose Bowl representative. That year in the Big Ten was wild. Now, this is a while ago. There were only 11 teams in the Big Ten, which plenty of people back then made fun of.
Oh, those were the days.
Those were the days, right? 5 of those teams were finished with 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah.
And this was a time where there was no championship game to pad your schedule with another win. There was only 11 games in the regular season to add more wins. Like, it was not top heavy. It was not. That was a very good year in the Big Ten.
It was very talented teams. 3 worthy champions who shared the conference championship. And again, because, as you mentioned, because Purdue beat Michigan and beat Northwestern in the head-to-head matchups, they were able to go to the Rose Bowl that year.
And part of the reason, Seth Morales, we're gonna step aside for a brief moment, and the man will join us when we come back.
Your Central Indiana Ford dealers are a proud sponsor of Purdue Football. Visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today.
We are joined now by Seth Morales. Let's start where everybody wants to start, right? We're talking about the Ohio State game from 2000. We'll span the career and everything you've done since then, but the Holy Toledo play.
The game,
and the catch, and here you are. Hard to believe a quarter of a century later, still talking about it.
It's wild.
It is. The way that game played out and the way, sort of the roller coaster of the third and fourth quarters.
Yep.
You're coming onto the field.
Yeah.
2 minutes to go, trailing.
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
I mean,
it's 2-minute offense, and Drew had just thrown that interception. And so you're kind of like, oh, crap. Like, we got Clopton makes a good kick return, so he gets us into a good field position, but you're kind of gassed out. I think Vinny in that game had to get an IV. He had so much activity. He had a lot of plays played, but you're gassed. You don't know. The 2-minute offense, it's not the best. You're running these routes, and you just got to perform really quickly and get back into the huddle, so you're gassed already. But my thought was, all right, let's make a play. Let's get this thing interesting. And the first play of that 2-minute offense, Drew throws a pass to me, and it's knocked down by the All-American defensive back Nate Clements. So I'm like, all right, this sucked. And then he calls, take two, and he calls twins right, 74XC pull, and I'm usually the fourth option on that. I'm running a skinny post, but I was in that offense and on that team for a reason. I was really consistent, and I didn't gas out, and I had decent hands, and that's why I made the team, and that's why I played. And so I ran my route. It was just one of those fortunate situations where Drew, has a phenomenal line that holds up. Mm-hmm. He's got all day, and then he runs through his progression. But, it's just one of those plays where that never happened. I never got a skinny post pass to me. He would always go to his first, second, or third option, or he'd probably throw it away or run out of bounds. So thankfully that worked out.
Yeah. Have you ever had a dream where you didn't catch the pass?
Oh my gosh, no, I haven't. But that would be.
I just planted that.
That would be a nightmare. I do think about every once in a while, like, what would life be?
Yeah.
Like, what would life be if I dropped that? Like, I would be it would be infamous.
All-time GOAT. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
and
really.
not the good kind of GOAT.
No.
I think about that, and I think I had a teammate that season earlier, Chris James. He had a couple of passes where he dropped earlier in the season against Kent State. And it just it really messed with his mindset. And so, people rise and fall all the time in this sport. But I'm just grateful it worked out. Right time, right place, great quarterback.
Yeah. And
I almost fell. I stumbled a couple of yards. But I'm just grateful for the opportunity.
I'm sure everybody has told you where they were, what they were wearing, what they were eating. So I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
We're up now this is the old press box at Ross-Ade. So you had the booth that was on top of basically the press box, and it was a low ceiling. And I saw the play start, and I saw Drew go back, and as he winds up to heave it, I look and I see you beating your guy by 2 or 3 yards.
Yeah.
You are wide open.
Yeah.
I thought immediately he had thrown the ball 5 yards over your head.
Oh, really?
I thought he had overthrown you by a mile. And
yeah.
I thought there is no way. And I'm thinking, how are we going to come back? And it was almost like you were shot from a cannon.
Yeah.
And you wound up, the ball was right there. Could you tell right away the pass was where it was supposed to be?
Yeah. I mean, Drew was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Skinny post, I did have to kind of speed it up. I think when you're running those routes, sometimes you're 3/4 speed because you're probably not going to get it. So you get back in the huddle for the next play. But I saw that come off his hand. I saw AT run that crossing route. I was like, oh shit, I gotta pick up the pace. But I think to his credit, he's a very accurate guy. I ran underneath it, made the play. But man, that was one of those moments where after you catch it, you stumble a little bit. I was looking either side. I was like, hey, is there any way to catch me after that? I just couldn't believe how wide open I was. Yeah. And so now I look back, it's like, all right, so you had a busted coverage, and that worked out for that safety to bite like Mike Doss did. So it's just like the stars aligned, and, fourth option walk-on makes the play. So
and become a legend in the process.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought that up, Tim, because talking we interviewed Drew some years ago about this exact play, and his first thought when he released the ball was, oh shit, I overthrew him.
Yeah.
Because he felt the same thing that you saw. It's like, oh man, and it's a good thing it was Seth on the other end with the speed and the hands.
Yeah.
Run right under it.
Yeah.
The elation in the moment, the celebration on the field was fantastic. The celebration over on the sideline was great.
Yeah.
At what point did you see and /hear the play back? Was it later that night? Was it film the next week?
It was. There were a couple moments. It didn't register at first. I knew the play was significant. I knew it clinched for the most part, the game if we held up on defense. But it was later that night, we had a Halloween party, and you went out and celebrated, and some of the attaboys that you got from people was a little bit more, it was just in large amounts, so that was great. But then it was the next day, Kevin Sumlin was our wide receiver coach.
Yep.
And he came up to me in the locker room, and he had the Indy Star, and I was on the front page of the sports, and he just smacked me over the head, and he was just elated, and I was like, he's really happy. This is a pretty significant play. This was a pretty big deal. And then, as you get older, you start to realize even more and more. But it was those moments, the Halloween party, and then I think Coach Sumlin, seeing how giddy he was, I think that shot him into another role, I think, at Oklahoma where he stepped up. So it was a launching pad for, I think, a lot of other coaches. So it was a pretty big deal those first 2 days out of that.
Okay.
Seth, the fact that play happened, the fact that you were here in the first place, that really wasn't supposed to happen either.
No.
My broadcast partner, Pete Quinn, had a little bit to do with that, but you had a lot to do with it. Talk about how you wound up going from starting your career at Butler to now walking on at a Big Ten university.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I owe Pete Quinn a lot. I was at Butler. I was under-recruited, didn't have any full scholarship offers, and so I played that first year. Had success, started as a freshman, led the team in receiving and touchdowns, but I just wasn't satisfied. And I watched that Alamo Bowl game against Kansas State. And it was a great game.
Yeah, it was.
It was a New Year's game. I was with my buddies, and I saw that, and I was like, there were some drops. I don't want to call out who had some drops, but I was like, you know what? I can catch those passes. I want to transfer. And at that time, I had a little brother who was playing CYO football in Indianapolis. And he happened to know his coach was Pete Quinn, and Pete had a Purdue connection. And I told my parents, I was like, hey, I either want to go to Purdue. At the time, I liked Georgia for whatever reason. I thought I could maybe play for the Bulldogs down there. And my dad was like, hey, let's take your tape and give it to Pete and see what he can do. And Pete really kind of opened the door for me, gave it to the walk-ons coach, Greg Olson, and the rest is history. I mean, I was invited to walk on, not a real big deal, but from that season, I remember Coach Sumlin telling me if I was eligible to play, I would have started as a true sophomore, but I had to sit out that season. And so that was kind of the juice that got me, to stay and stick with it. But it was really kind of just telling my coach at Butler that I was going to transfer, and then him telling me that I was making a huge mistake and that I'd never play until like my fifth year. That was like motivation and bulletin board material for me. And then Pete opening the door and then just kind of proving it out I'm just grateful for that. And I think that's transferred into life in a lot of different ways too.
Now, you can solve an urban legend. Maybe it isn't an urban legend. Did Joe Tiller try to talk you out of it?
He wasn't a big fan of transfers. And Joe, man, he was tough, man. I was the newcomer of the year in spring ball. And I went into his office like, Coach, I'd love a full scholarship. And he was like, no, you got to earn it. He's like, you got to wait till the fall. And like that, and I had Coach Sumlin telling me like, you're our starting receiver if you're eligible. And so Tiller was tough, and he didn't like transfers, and he liked people to kind of do it the traditional way. And I appreciated that. I think that motivated me to stay hungry, and the rest is history. But like I look back at those moments and I'm like, man, that was not cool, but I'm grateful for those like hard knocks. Those really like, that matters, and I'm grateful for that.
That's such a great lesson. Everyone, it's not just in athletics. You face adversity.
Yeah.
You always face people who tell you can't, people who tell you shouldn't, and there's two ways you can go. You can listen to them, or you can try and prove them wrong. That's such a great lesson.
Yeah, it was a great lesson, and it carries over into business today and life and how I try to coach and lead our team at Morales Group and the business I work at. So, yeah, I'm grateful for those opportunities that I had. I think some tough old school coaches that made you earn it the right way. Yeah. Those life lessons definitely apply today.
Yeah, one misconception that I'd like to correct too. Seth Morales was not a one-hit wonder.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
And talk about that play earlier in that same season against Wisconsin, because you go up to Madison, back and forth game. They had just taken the lead in the third quarter. You catch a 78-yard touchdown pass. Was it the same play, or do you remember what?
No,
the play
it was a different play, but it's similar concept. Their safety, Jason Doring, he was not a great cover safety, and he was great at tackling. And Vinny ran a crossing route. He bit on that. Chaney was a great play caller.
Yeah,
he had a great OC at the time, and Drew pumped it, and then he's got great line protection as always, and then he throws it over the top. I make the catch. If you watch that in slow motion, Jamar Fletcher, All-American, All Big Ten cornerback, who gave Drew some challenges earlier, almost intercepted it. I catch it and he comes swooping by. So yeah, big play. I think that set us up for kind of that tie ball game to go into overtime. But yeah, I was one of those guys that I was either going to be a third or fourth option for Drew, and I was a little bit of a long ball hitter. I had a couple of catches earlier in the season whether it was Minnesota or Kent State or, I had some deep balls. So Drew was really good at, reading his progressions and following and accurate. But that was a big play. I was grateful because that was my 21st birthday. So went out and celebrated after that. That was a great time.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So that was kind of the first, not the one-hit wonder, just Ohio State. Had another touchdown that season and went on to make a few other catches, but I was grateful for that game.
Yeah. What was that? You've mentioned a couple times the offensive line with great protection is always that collection of talent was as good as any offensive line Purdue's ever had. Yeah. Drew is Drew, Vinny, and Tim Stratton, and just that collection of guys to be around that group every day. What was that like that season?
Man, it was special. You didn't realize it. You didn't realize it now until you look back. You're like, oh, there's all Big Ten. These are all Americans. These are guys that are having long-term NFL careers, like Matt Light, Super Bowl champion with the Patriots,
who came here as an undersized tight
end. Yeah, they did a good job at molding different players into other positions. I look back, and that era was really special. I remember Sports Illustrated did an article on Stanford, Vinny, Stratton, myself, and Drew, and kind of that group. And then you kind of recognize, hey, there's something different. This is special. But that line, man, they don't get enough credit. I think about that. I think 4 of the 5 guys played in the NFL.
They all played. And all played in the Super Bowl game.
So just phenomenal line. I mean, Stratton, tight end of the year, Mackey, a winner. So there was just Montrell was great. I think I was probably the worst player of the starting 11. And you know what? I'm grateful for that. It's I tell people that all the time. Hey, you want to be the best player at times, but you want to surround yourself with even better players. And that was definitely that 2000 season.
Going from your couch watching the Alamo Bowl to stepping on the field in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like that day? You didn't win the game, but it's still a memory that none of us will forget.
I mean, Pasadena, 4:00. Nobody else is playing. I was the most nervous I've ever been in a game. I couldn't shake the nerves until maybe midway through the first quarter. The flyover, just the Pasadena tradition, just the pageantry that comes around with it. I don't know. It was one of those things where you're really grateful to be in that moment. Washington was a really good team. They had a great defense. They had a good scheme against us that game. But I was just tickled to death at, going from the Butler Bowl to the Rose Bowl. And then, I made a few plays. I had a few catches that game. I didn't break out or do anything significant, but just to have that moment, to have your family come out and support you, to be in LA, there's some cool things that we did, after hours, just seeing some of the stars and being with the team. So the Jay Leno show, it was a wonderful, once in a lifetime opportunity. So I was grateful for that.
You wear it on your chest now, Morales Group. Talk about the company that your dad started.
Yeah. Father founded. There were 2 Purdue Sigma Chi's who were engineers. One was my father. The other was the co-founder, John Taylor. They started the business right as I was finishing up here at Purdue.
Okay.
And I jumped on board about a year into the company started. I was employee number 5. And we do recruiting and staffing. So just like, football recruiting, we recruit people for jobs. And we built that business up over the last 20 years. I worked alongside my father. And it's been a labor of love. It's been a cool opportunity to apply some of my underdog, gritty kind of, I think, tangibles to the world of business. We've built the business in a pretty sizable way where we exceeded over sales over annually of over 100 million. So that was quite a bit. We have several thousand employees. So, and we use it as a kind of a platform to do good. So there's kind of a cause disguised as a business, and then you have the business side, and you kind of have this legacy now. So I got my two little guys up here with me to talk to them. We just visited our Lafayette branch office. So it's been fun. It's been a labor of love, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
That's awesome. How difficult was it for you, if at all, to go to to Notre Dame for your MBA?
Yeah,
was that hard?
For that. It was, because first of all, Pete was really Quinn was like devastated that I did that. He's like, "You're a traitor." So a couple quick thoughts there. My wife got accepted into the MBA program at Notre Dame before I did.
Okay.
And I was like, "Hey, you're not going to grad school without me." I was really competitive. And at the same time, I had a really, really terrible game against Notre Dame my senior year. Orton's the quarterback. We lose up there. I drop a pass late in the fourth quarter. They pick it off. They go and score a touchdown. And my senior year, Ray Williams comes in, and I split time with Ray, and I just kind of lose my mindset. And so I felt like I had some like unfinished business up in South Bend. So that was kind of the reason why I went up there. I felt like they have a great brand, good MBA program. Probably could have gone to Purdue as well, but I trailed my wife, and I was competitive. So but it was a great experience, and
blame her. I like it.
Blame
That's
her,
right.
but still cheer.
And we still love you.
Yeah,
Yeah, no doubt.
When people say Seth Morales forever in Purdue history, it's
Yeah.
going to tie back to one play in Ross-Ade Stadium. We've talked about the fact that you are much more than that. But are you okay if that's all they remember you for?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Like, I was doing a talk to a graduating class, Purdue Polytech High School, and I was talking to them about being kind of that gritty underdog, that story, and that resonated with them. But I told them, I was like, hey, I came across this article in Bleacher Report, top like 100 or top 50 all-time college football plays, and our play that Drew Brees to me was ranked 11th. So I don't know, give it credibility or not, but shoot, to be a part of, I think, a rich program, and to be, I think, in a golden era of football for Purdue, and to play that part, I was one part of the like puzzle. I'm tickled to death. I felt like I over-indexed when I got here and did what I did. So I don't know. It's just I just a ton of gratitude, and I'll take it. I'll be a one-hit wonder any day of the week with that catch. I think it's pretty. It's opened a lot of doors and helped my career afterwards.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, who could ask for more than being remembered for something that gives everybody joy, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Seth, it's been great having you back talking about this game. Purdue football's done a lot for you, but I think Seth Morales has done a lot for Purdue and Purdue football, and you continue to do a lot for the state of Indiana and the surrounding region. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, boiler up. Than's for having me, guys, and we'll get a win here soon.
Let's go.
All right.